Welcome back to our Learning Family Search series. We are in Lesson 4, and we are going to focus on the family tree portion of Family Search. So Family Tree is the application that allows us to create a pedigree, connect us to our ancestors. Very important if your goal is to get temple ordinances, temple work done for your ancestors. That's something that if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is very important to you. But perhaps that isn't your interest. You're just trying to do genealogy work, trying to put together your family pedigree. Family tree is great for that. And the wonderful thing about family tree is once you start getting names in there and faces and people in there, there's actually third-party applications that you can do a lot of really interesting things, from helping your research and finding more information about them to looking for connections to favorite people and even games that can be used based on information in your family tree. We're going to talk about all of that today, but we're going to start with family tree. And one of the key things I want to point out is how unique family tree is within Family Search than the similar programs or the similar functionalities in other sites like Ancestry and others. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to illustrate the strengths of that, and I'm going to illustrate some of the things that we need to keep in mind when we're working in our family tree. So as I get ready here, I'm going to switch over to a web browser, and we're going to spend the rest of this session actually in the in Family Search and some of the partner apps, showing you around. So if you have the capability, I would suggest that you keep me running in maybe one part of your screen or on one device while you're following along on a browser on the other device, on another device. That can kind of help you see what's going on and at least see the same things that we're doing. Okay, so where I'm going to start actually in beta.familysearch.org, and let me talk about that. If you've been on Family Search, you're going to look at this and go, that's exactly the same as www.familysearch.org. The only difference is there's got this beta tag in here. So let me tell you what this is. So once a year, towards the end of the year, November, December, Family Search will take a snapshot of the active production database that we generally interact with as users, that's found at www.familysearch.org. And they put it into a development test environment called beta.familysearch.org. And the reason they do that is it gives their development teams data that they can work with to test new features and other things. It also gives us an environment as family historians to learn to do things that need data, but we might not want to corrupt or mess up the data in production. Now, I'll say one thing: there really isn't much you can do in your data in familysearch.org that can't be undone, but I find that it's helpful to have a sandbox to play in, because I tend to not be as worried about messing something up. And so I think that might be the same thing for you. The only requirement here is that you're going to need an account. So if you don't have an account, create an account, walk through it, and then you can follow along here. I'm going to sign in, and it's the exact same credentials you use to log into www.familysearch.org. So we're going to land on the landing page. We're going to Family Tree, and we're going to go to Tree. And one of the things that I did is I used beta for I stripped out all the other data in here so that my account right now looks like yours might look if you were new to Family Search. And so we're going to go through here, and I'm going to add some relatives to it. So really, one of the first immediate goals in Family Search is one of the first guidance is you want to connect yourself to your ancestors, to your dead, to your deceased ancestors. That's the first thing. That's the first thing you're going to want to do. Don't worry so much about building all your living relatives. This is about connecting to your ancestors. Now, when you create, when you add a record or create a record, like happens here when I made my Family Search account, it created a record for me. And since I'm a member of the church, I tied it to my membership ID. So this is me. Now, a record can have one of two statuses. Depending upon the status, it's going to define what you can and can't do with that account. So, for instance, you see this account here. It's got my birth date, my birth year, and it says that I'm living, I'm alive, right? Meaning there hasn't been death information, and the status of my record is living and not deceased. Now, there's some very specific controls and protections that are put into living records, and it all has to do with privacy protection of information. And so any living record that you create, and you may have to create some, and I'll show you that in a minute, any living record you create is limited to your account only. And the way you're going to see this, it's shown in a big banner right here. Living and confidential people are managed in a private space. That private space exists in your account. So even if somebody wanted to search for that person ID number, which is unique to this record, you would not be able to find it, because this isn't a personal closed space. Some of the other things in here is, even though I am an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I will not see any ordinance information. We do not display ordinance information for the living records, even your own living record. And one of the other things about certain living records, like my record, because I've tied it to my membership record, when the time comes that I pass away, a membership clerk in my ward will mark the status in my membership record as deceased, and will likely put, I think they put death date and maybe some location information. When they update the church membership database, there's a connection to Family Search's database. And so actually what will happen is then my status right here, this status will transition to deceased. And like I said, I think the information, some death information will go in here. And then what happens is all deceased records transition into the tree, the large open family tree in there. And that means that then that record, those records of the deceased, are visible by anyone. Then you could search for me by name, you could search for me by PID, and you'd find this record. And it's where that open tree, that public open tree, is where all the magic happens. And it's very unique from anything else. I came to Family Search from Ancestry, and in Ancestry, there's a lot of great features. And one of the things that I liked was the capability to create multiple trees, so I could research multiple lines, things like that. One of the things about that, though, is those are private trees. I can give visibility to certain people or allow limited search into it, but ultimately those records are my records. I own that organization in there, and it isn't something that anybody can just have complete access to. The open public tree in Family Tree is open, so anyone that has a Family Search account can search and see the family tree, the organization, the connection of the deceased. And I'm going to show you that. And that has some very, very unique advantages to it, but it also carries some responsibilities as family historians. So let's go through. Let me go through an example here, because that's going to show. It's going to be a lot easier to show. So I'm going to connect to my dead ancestors. My father has passed already. My mother has not. So I'm going to start with him. I'm going to click here. Now I can search by name. I can search by ID number. I don't know his ID number, so I'm going to search by name. Now, searching, doing the searching in here, it's always a fine balance with how much information you want to give. Sometimes you might think that more information is better. Honestly, I have found that sometimes if you put too much information in the search field, you actually have trouble finding records. And so what I'll tend to do is give the first, middle, and last name and one particular date and see if that helps. And then I may add more data if I need to. Now, so one of the things you notice here is I click deceased. It's saying your deceased ancestor may already be in family tree. Remember, this is a shared database. So this record might be in the tree. Now, I'm going to cheat just a little because I know it's in the tree because I've created it. I removed it from my tree for demonstration purposes, but that record is still sitting out there in that family tree. And so what I'm going to do is give some information. I'm going to give one date that I know for him. Okay, I'm going to standardize, make sure that's the standardized date, which it is. Then I'm going to put in death date. It'll actually fill it in for me because that's very unique. And then I'm going to hit next, and it's going to search. Now it's searching the public tree because I said he's deceased, and it's going to return back a number of possible matches. The very first one is the most probable match. But in your case, it might not be. And you can see I could scroll down here and I could look for other people. Now, on the case that you do a good search, you try a couple of iterations, and you don't find anybody in the public tree, then you could actually go over here and create this person in the public tree because it's a deceased individual. But in my case, I know that this is my father, so I'm going to click on Add Match. It's going to connect me in here. And now let me zoom out and look at this. Because he's in a tree and he's been connected in the family tree by me and others that are doing research on this line, all of that connection comes in. All of that connection comes in, right? And this is a great strength of this public tree. So if you have a family member that's been very, very active in doing work and putting things in family tree and connecting your deceased ancestors together and validating that, when you connect your living record to that tree, it's all going to pull back in, so you don't have to redo it all, which is also very unique from anything else out there on the market. Now, there's a counterbalance to that. There's things we have to keep in mind. In the shared tree, if I go in and I interact with my dad's record and I put an update in there, it is visible to everybody. And so in future lessons, we're going to talk about how we do that kind of information. We add information, and then we're going to do things like write reason statements about why we did something or why we think something of this. And so we just want to be mindful of the fact that we're working in a shared open tree with other family historians, and we want to constantly be trying to treat them with the same mercy and kindness that we would want them to treat us. Okay, and we're going to talk about that more, more in the future. Now, so I'm going to zoom this back in. Now let me go here. So if I float over my dad's record, I see his person ID. I can click on this and get this. This is a high-level summary. I see all of his information, right? I see his person ID, and now you notice I get information on his ordinances, the status of his ordinances. So there's work that can be done there. I also show how many sources and how many memories are attached. We'll talk about those as well, but the great thing is we can attach sources and memories, and we want to do that because one of the key things of value and importance in here is the concept of identity. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute and talk about identity. So here's this. Now the key is that anybody that pulls up this record this person ID will see this information in here. So we do want to be mindful of the kind of information that we put in as memories, because that information will eventually transition and be publicly visible. Okay, so now, let me go to, I'm going to go to my mom. My mom is still alive. So the only thing there's a couple things we're going to do different. Okay, I'm going to still put her information in here. She's female, she's living, and you can see that the box changes, and it gives you a reminder. You must create living members to connect your deceased ancestors, but it's going to be private. Nobody else will be able to see her record. Okay, and so I'm going to put in a birth date in here. Okay, and I'll pick the standard method here. I'm going to also do the same. Hastings, Nebraska, and you can see that fills in here. And then I'm going to click next, and it's going to, it's really going to it acts like it searches, but it really isn't, because it's not going to search the public tree because this is a living person. And it isn't even going to search my private records either, which I'm going to show you something in a minute on that. But so it just basically says, okay, you're going to create this living person. And so that's what I do, is I'm going to create this living person. Okay, boom. And so this happens. Now, if she had her mom and dad, if this record that I connected here had her parents in it, she would get the same long line. Now, what I want to show you here is her record I've already created it before, and I've added it to, I connected it to her ancestors. But because I'm working with a living record, it's creating something only in that private space, and it's not searching for anything. So what I'm going to do is, in those cases where you have private records, and you're going to, it's going to happen, you can manage those by going to My Contributions, and then go look at Private People. And what this shows you all the records that you've created of living people in the account. So here's the one that here's the one I just created, right? Just created it, okay? But that's not her. This is the one that I want, because it's got memories, it has ancestry connected to it, it has descendancy or ancestry connected to it. And so what I want to do is I want that record in rather than this record in. So what I'm going to do, and there's a couple of ways to do this. There's a couple of ways we can do it. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to delete this old record, or this new record, and I'm going to add her record by her PID on here, which I see. So I can, first of all, I'll start here. I'm going to click on here, and that's going to tell me that it copied that ID, and it's going to hold it in memory. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go here, because I created this record, I can delete this record. Whoops, I need to be in the right place. It's under Details. If I scroll down here, you're going to see Delete Person. I'm going to click Delete Person. Now it's going to give me anytime I do these types of things, I'm going to get an opportunity to explain what I'm doing and to make sure I do things. It's like, okay, I understand the couple of parent-child relationship, and it wants a reason statement. Why are you doing this? And so I'm going to write this in. This is always a good idea to do this, so that get in the habit of doing this, because what this will do is other people, family researchers that are working, if they see this in the change log, they'll understand what I did. They'll understand what I do. So I'm going to say this is a duplicate of, and I'm going to paste in her PID, and then I'm going to say delete, and she's gone. Now, right now, this record, this is that new record. It says its person is deleted. So I'm going to go back to the tree. Okay, I'm going to go to Home. which takes me back. And you see now my mom is gone out of here. Now what I'll do is I'm going to hit add spouse. I'm going to do it by ID. I'm going to paste her PID number. I'm going to hit next. And there it is. One match is found, because now it's looking, you can search private records by PID, but not necessarily not by name. It's what I found. So you have to use it by PID. So it looks in my space, because it's a living record, and says, this is what I want to use. This is who I want to use. And I say add match. And then all of a sudden, now I have her name and I get her entire ancestry, right? I get her entire ancestry. So boom, there it is. It happens again. It can happen pretty quickly as long as you know what to do. So let's talk a minute about this concept of identity. So in the first lesson, one of the things I talked about was the mission statement for the family tree. And that was to have one complete, accurate record for each person who has lived on the earth, linked to other records by correct relationships. So that's a pretty big mission statement. And like everything we do in family history, all we can do is the very best that we can do, because some of our ancestors we just don't have that much information about. But in my case, let's look at this for a minute. If I'm trying to understand that there needs to be a record that represents John Judson Howard, me. It needs to be in the public tree after my passing and correctly connected to everyone else. And it needs to have evidence enough that any other researcher could look at that and go, that is John J. Howard. That's identity. That capability that not only you know that's the right person, but anyone else that's looking at that record and the relationships you created with it is the right record, right well. So I look at this, and what I know is that's my record that was created when I created my account and I tied it to my church membership ID. So that's a very strong evidence chain that says that's me. Okay. So now let's say I go here and I add my living record for my wife, and my wife in Family Search puts a record for her spouse in her Family Search account with all this same information. John Judson Howard, born July 8, 1964, and it puts all the marriage information in there, okay? Her record, even though it's got the identical information to me, isn't me. It represents me. And as long as it's kept in a private environment like her account, no big deal. It's a placeholder. And that's absolutely fine, especially if you need to do that to be able to build out, right, the family. You want to build out your family tree. However, what we need to do is we need to understand what's going to happen, right? When I pass away, the membership clerk for my ward is going to update my membership record with my new status that I'm deceased. And all that information, that's going to change my record in my account in Family Search, because there's a tie between membership database and family tree database. And my record is going to transition to deceased, and it's going to go into the public tree. No problem there. Now I'm there and people can connect to me. Now, if my wife and maybe any other family members do what family historians do, which is record historical information, they may go into their Family Search, into their family tree, and record me as deceased with all my data. And then consequently, their records, their representations of me will also transition into the public tree. And what they've done by just by doing what they're supposed to do, they've actually created duplicates for me in the tree. They've created distractors in here, which can cause it causes more cycles that other people are going to have to spend to clean it up, or heaven forbid, other people see those duplicated records. They don't know it's a duplicate, but all they know is it's somebody who needs temple ordinances, and they go do work for me, not knowing that the actual record, the true record that represents me, has all my ordinances done already. So that's the danger in here. So if you're going to have to connect some degree of living people in your tree. Like I had to put my mom in the tree in order to connect to her family. So what you're going to want to do is, first of all, you want to make sure you and everybody else that's doing this is mindful of that relationship, and that they know that when for instance, that I would make sure that people know that when I pass away, they don't need to reflect my dying in their record. They just need to copy or merge in or add, like I added with my mom, by my PID number, add me into their family tree. Now, what if, like with my mom here, my mom's living, and I've got memories attached to her. Now, this isn't her account. This isn't her, because she has a family search account as well with a membership ID. What if I have specific information I've attached to my record of my living relative? Then there's a process of merging your record into that base identity record, that one base one. So that information comes over. And we're going to talk about merging later on. But one of the things you ought to consider is communicating. One of the things you can do is you could communicate with the other members of your family and say, look, I would connect and say, hey, look, my PID number is this. Just make sure that you do the right thing with your record so we don't cause a distractor. And one of the things you can do is go into collaborate. You can add a note in here, for instance, and give it a title, right? John J. Howard's PID, right? And then write it down and note that when John passes away, please merge your account, merge your record of him with his base PID, which is this, or delete it if there's no other information. And that way, it's a reminder, right? It's again, we're being very purposeful in trying to protect what is in the tree, okay? So important stuff. Now, one of the things, even though you're watching this as you're watching this, I'm just going to go back to the tree. As you're watching this recorded, you could still do this. I would ask. So I want you to do something. So I'm going to hover over my grandfather, Clarence Keel, and you see his PID number, 9NSK-LPQ. If you go into your family search account and do a search by that PID, you're going to find my grandfather's record. And what I want you to do is go into that record. I've posted a question under discussions in there. I've posted a discussion in there, and because it's an open and public record, you can actually respond to it. So add a comment in there. Give me your name and respond to the question that I gave you there, and that shows you, right, that this power of this open database. Now, you could also, just to kind of prove things out, you can also go search for me, KWZ8-F3J, and you won't be able to find me because I'm a public record unless something happens over the next day or two between now and the time you go searching. But let's stay hopeful here that but you'll be able to see that. So that hopefully really helps to drive home the difference about this and our responsibility. And we're going to come back to this obviously in future situations. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to leave beta. I'm going to go into family search, into the production environment. It's going to have me sign in because these are different environments. So one of the things I want to do is, now once you have a family tree in place, right? Once you have a family tree in place, there's activities that you can do. And one of the things that I think was really kind of cool is I'm going to do something. So some of the family lore that floats around in our family is that we are related to Alexander Hamilton. So I thought one time, I said, well, let's see. I have a tree that goes back to that time that I think is pretty accurate. I think there's still some things that need to be fixed, but anyways, I have a tree that I have a tree that goes back that far. So let's test this out. So what I'm going to do is I went and searched Alexander Hamilton's record. There is a family search record in here for him in the tree. It's locked, so nobody can do anything. But he's there, and I'm going to do it by ID, just so that it's quicker. And H6X. Okay, now I'm going to do this. Yep, sure enough, there he is, Elizabeth Schuyler, on and on and on. So I'm going to click on Alexander Hamilton. It's actually kind of fun to go into the database and look for famous people. There's actually 2 records for Jesus Christ in here. It's very interesting. But yeah, it's fun just to go in and search. So you see all this information. He's read-only. But what I want to show you is right here. View my relationship. So if I click on this, and so I can say, well, my mom has always said we're related to Alexander Hamilton. Let's see if I have enough information to either prove or deny that. Okay, so I hit invite, and sure enough, I hit relationship. It goes through my tree down to him, and sure enough, it says he's my 7th cousin, 5 times removed, which is a really distant relationship. But I don't know, maybe that gets me invited to a reunion or something somewhere along the line. But if I go back through here, and I've checked a lot of these, most of these are right. There may still be some questions in here, so that may not be right, 100% right. But it's kind of fun when you begin being connected in a public tree, be able to do those kinds of things. I've also done it to find, as I'm trying to find family members, I'll find old letters, and I try to find family members and where they are, who they are to me. That's really fun stuff. So show your relationship. It's kind of just a fun activity. One of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the family history technology lab at byu.ed. That's fhtl.byu.ed or edu, excuse me. And they have all these applications that integrate to family search. And let's give this a try. Relative Finder is really kind of fun. It's going to come in here. It's going to ask you to sign into your family search account, which is what I'm going to do. And then it's going to run, and it's going to calculate. It's going down, look at my database, and it's going to calculate, and it's going to look for all these family connections and put up a diagram showing, or a table that shows that. It may or may not work. Because I've been jumping between systems, there might be a little bit of an issue here. It's taking a little while longer, but this is actually really fun, because you can go down one side and you can say, well, show me if I'm related to presidents of the church or famous women of the church. There we go. It worked. So I can go down here and I can say, what's my related to current apostles or prophets, and you can see it begins to show some of that. I think it's is there why presidents, right? Things like it. So this is one of those things. It's just kind of a fun thing. You can download it as a PDF file and use it. It's just a fun thing, I think, from a family activity perspective, to be able to look at that. If I go back up here, I won't just get into this too far, but if I go back up here, there's there's a Jeopardy game that does the same thing. It pulls information out of your family tree and creates a Jeopardy board so you and your family can play. There's a Wheel of Fortune. There's reverse indexing, which is actually a way to help train the AI in family search to understand and interpret handwriting better. So it's not a game, but it's a way to help tune the systems about that. I've talked about that one in the past. So those are a couple of things. Those are a couple of fun things that you can do once you start getting a family tree. And it's really important. I've been surprised by the amount of research that has come up in the last 15 years around the value of raising a family history family, a family that understands where they come from. They know the stories of their ancestors, and more importantly, they derive lessons, important life lessons from the failures and the successes of ancestors. That the research is pretty strong, indicating that children that grow up in those environments tend to be more resilient, meaning they respond better to the highs and the lows. And so these types of activities are really, really powerful for helping your children. So another site, if you just type in all the stories, as you can see here, what you'll do is you'll get a response to, or a resolution to stories.familyfound.app.com. And this one is a research tool. And when it loads, it's going to ask me to log in. Again, I'm logging into Family Search. What it's going to do, it's going to scan my, and I've already run this once. So if you're new to it, what will happen is it'll scan your tree and it'll look at its database of stories, family histories, written family histories, things like that, historical documents, whatever, and look for places that your relatives have been referenced to. It's kind of interesting. It's like, look at this. Full transcript of the memoirs of William Calhoun Love, son of William Love and Esther Calhoun. An estimated 137 minutes worth of reading material in here, right? Surveys and patents before 1788. If I just click on this, it shows me who it is, right? Who's referenced and the descendancy. So anyways, hopefully you get the sense that there's a lot of things that can be done with a tree that you're filling out above and beyond temple ordinance work, which is obviously extremely important for our ancestors. Hopefully you also get an idea that maybe recreating your tree in Family Search and Family Tree might not be as laborious as it has been if you've used Ancestry or Find My Past or something else that have these private tree philosophies. That this public tree can really save time and help you benefit from search and work that other family members or other people may have done. It also brings with it some responsibility on our part to be mindful of the work that we do when we're working in the tree, because we are touching lives of other people. So anyways, that's what I have. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know from a comment perspective on the channel what you think. And next month, I'm going to do another one of these. We're going to continue in Family Tree. We're going to start talking about research, how to do research, some of the tools that Family Search has to help you find family, find connections, and give you some hints on finding people. Thanks again, and thanks for joining, and have a